how old is too old to travel? Like, is there a point that you guys are like, you're 75, you shouldn't be traveling no more, sit in your rocker? Okay. Bonjour, bienvenue à un autre épisode de notre podcast qui s'appelle Rhythm and Rome. Je m'appelle Benef, bien sûr, et j'ai avec moi Paul et Trecia. Et comment ça va?
Ça va?
Ça va très bien.
Très bien. That was very good, Benef. Wow.
Very good.
Magnifique podcast for vous. Okay, anyway, we have a wonderful podcast for you as usual. We are talking about mature travelers, or
Ooh la la.
oui, les personnes qui sont un peu plus âgées.
Older people.
or like I like to say, 55 or better.
Or
Yes.
AARP recipients.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. When do you become too old to travel? Is it 75? Is it 80? 85? Is there a number where now it's like just cut, sling, load, sit in your rocker, you're too old to go anywhere, nobody wants you?
Oh God. It just sounds like the end is near.
It's harsh. It's harsh.
Yeah, it is harsh.
Is it even a thing? Like, does age even matter when it comes to travel?
Let's talk about your travel now, at your 55 and better, or, advanced age.
Yeah, now I'm retired.
Now that you're retired.
Yes, and I want to travel.
At the golden age of, do we say your age? Can we say your age?
Sure, I
72. You'll be 72 this year.
And
fabulous.
Young.
That's right. You traveled to England in September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was that like now? Preparing, like as far as, packing and getting things together?
Well, at the time of the year that we were going,
right, which was September.
It was September,
mm-hmm.
and you had to take layers of clothes.
Yes, the different
clothing.
Mm-hmm. You have to prepare for weather and shoes.
Yeah, walking shoes.
Right.
But the traveling was good. I didn't have any problem. I enjoyed the tours that I went on.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was lovely.
Yeah.
But there's one place I need to go, and that's Paris.
Yeah. Paris is on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of the other? What are some other comforts that you would want?
Waiting in those long lines.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they should have more help.
What are some tips that you would recommend someone who is in the 55 or better club that wants to travel internationally? What are some things that you would say that they should do to travel?
You have to have your wits about you and know exactly what airline you're going on.
Right.
Sometimes that airline, you start from the front of the building and it's all the way down in the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You try to get a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. I know I could use a wheelchair most of the time.
Yeah, so a lot of times you can order that ahead of time.
So see if but sometimes you don't even get it.
Sure.
So I had to start walking.
You had to start walking.
Yeah, with my carry-on bag too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was long.
Mm-hmm. But you took your time.
Yeah.
And you got there. But that's where you allow for the extra time also. That's the case.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to.
So you definitely have to allow for the extra time.
No.
Going through Heathrow, you're only allowed 100 milliliters total. So if you have any items or you have anything, you have to make sure that if you're going to do, believe it or not, if you're going to do just a connecting flight, or if you're having that as your stop, or you're leaving from Heathrow, you can only have 100 milliliters of liquid. Yeah. So that's total. So if you're going to do anything, you're going to have to make sure whatever else you have to check it. or you're going to have to get rid of it. So
Yeah.
just make sure when you're going through, you have that when
Yeah.
going through Heathrow.
Make
So,
sure you don't have any sharp
it was supposed to,
objects
it
or
was supposed to
nothing
have
like
done
that.
something that it's something that was supposed to have been gone by now, but it is still there.
It's
So,
still there.
it's a money
Yes.
factor. I think it's a money grab for them. So just make sure when you're doing your Heathrow, if you can avoid it, try to do that. If you're,
Yes.
if you're someone like me who has to carry, all the accoutrements, just make sure you have that and be prepared
Yeah,
to
be
check your bag if
prepared.
you need to. So yeah.
Yeah, make sure you carry a little two
Yeah.
two
But
ounces.
only 100 milliliters
Mhm.
total. So just know that.
Total, yeah.
So yeah, that was unexpected. So
Mhm.
yeah, you have to
that
be
was
prepared for that.
unexpected for me.
So maybe just a little extra cash, maybe to make sure that you're prepared
yeah.
with cash.
Oh yeah, you gotta have some cash.
And what are some
You have
other
to
things
have
that you think
cash.
that you probably need? A long distance plan.
Oh yes.
That's probably something that you need to have.
Uh-huh.
Access to internet if you're thinking
Yes.
that you're going to need to use it.
Yeah, you have to.
For banking purposes. That's
Mhm.
probably another tip
Yeah.
that we probably
You
could
have
give
to.
you.
You have to.
Access to internet or a long distance carrier that's going to be able to give you long distance.
Mhm.
So that you're able to let your loved ones know that you're safe and that you arrived. But more
Yeah.
importantly, if you're going to have to do any banking online or anything like that,
Mhm.
uploading of pictures, anything like that,
Yeah.
is probably a good idea that you have
Yes,
some
it
type of
is.
plan. If you're going to have that, a lot of the hotels and different things are going to have access to that. But make sure that is part of something that you do ask if you're staying at a hotel.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
At this point, when we talked about traveling with little kids, and I know, Paul, you had a lot to say about that, about, with
Yes.
the infants and the toddlers and the school
Mhm.
age and the teenagers. And now we're talking about people that are older than us, I guess, is what,
Yeah.
but how old?
What?
Like,
Well, first off, let me just say this. What happened to respecting your elders? It's what I'll say at first.
yeah,
Is
I mean, it's
because
definitely a societal and cultural thing. And I would say that Americans are not
right.
our country is not one of the ones that are like respect your elders. Like,
Well,
like
I'm
the
gonna say
Jap-
it's not just Americans. It's I'm at least Europeans are kind of shabby with their
similar.
elders here too as well.
So
So
maybe, yeah.
um
Yeah, I mean, you see more respect in Japan. They actually have a respect for the
mhm.
aged people day, like a whole day to celebrate older
But
people.
what does that mean
Right.
for travel though? I respect them
Yeah.
too when they're hanging out and just chilling, but when
Well,
they're in my way,
but they're-
I mean, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry.
that's what came out. They're
But
in my
no, but
way.
okay, but seriously, no, think about it. So yes, I think we have to really have this discussion because think about it. When you're traveling, and I'm not saying, and I know we're going to talk about this
Yes.
topic as far as us traveling and how we actually arrived to the topic was something that I brought up to the fact that when traveling with my mom or with traveling, because I am the only child, so I have the sole responsibility of, as a companion with
Caregiver.
my mother when I travel and being a caregiver when that time does come. And my mother is still fairly independent now, but she has retired. So, that is very much on the forefront.
Absolutely.
And she can certainly travel on her own, but she chooses not to. She feels more comfortable if I travel with her.
We know you don't have any trouble in wanting to travel, but when traveling, do you have any fears about traveling? Do you have any, does it anything that makes
everything has changed now
Yes.
since when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is changed now.
Like what?
And traveling, you have to do this, you got to do that.
Like what though? I mean, like
but
what are some of the things that has changed?
Well, the airline for one,
Mm-hmm.
and
You mean
you get to the airport.
way that you travel? Yeah.
Yeah, you get to the airport, you have to know where to go.
Right.
Sometimes you don't know who to ask because the way the world is now, it's scary.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a little bit of fear of traveling by myself.
Okay. So traveling
You
by
know.
yourself. You
Mhm.
prefer that you do travel with someone, and
With
most people
someone.
do.
Yeah.
Solo travel
Yeah.
is I will admit is very daunting, even for someone who isn't elderly. So
Mhm,
yeah, there's a lot of people
mhm,
that don't
mhm.
necessarily want to travel solo.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that that's the
And
case.
whenever I'm traveling, I want to go on a straight flight.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So once I leave and I land, I'm there.
Right. Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So, that means for me that I may not be able to move freely as I would want to now.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So let-
yeah, so why I feel that, what does that mean? What's that question? What are the limitations now, for you as a
Mm.
companion? And now it's a thought process for ourselves, because now we're like, oh, right. So what about when we get older? What does that mean for us for travel? Yikes.
Well, so
I don't know.
let me I'm going to define a little bit more, because obviously we're probably only focusing probably solely on airplane travel, probably, and maybe I don't know, long distance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
car
I'm
or-
thinking international when I think travel.
with
I mean, I
but
think
still,
domestically as well.
yeah.
but I mean,
Sure.
like, we're not focusing just on airplane. We're focusing on traveling in
Right.
a car and all this other stuff, and
Sure.
and
It's
so on.
everything. Road
So-
trips, it's everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but what does that require? For me, because I remember I used to love traveling with my mom back. She was no problem, as she was aging and stuff like this. My uncle, who is getting up there in age too as well, he still travels a lot, and I've traveled with him several times too as well. And believe it or not, he's more energetic than I am at times. So I don't know if it's a myth or is something that we can debunk. Now, there are times where people are of age, because you see them. I see it here in Paris. They're traveling in groups. They either have a walker or they have some kind of support to help them to trot
Mhm.
along.
Mhm.
I've also, and Tricia, I'm sure your experience with your mom and stuff like that. We'll talk a little bit more, but on my end, when I'm in the airport and I see, um, you know, our elders that are traveling first, getting on the plane and so on, I actually am not bothered by it, but I do see the annoyance on people's face if they see a whole bunch of them on the same flight, because that
Mhm.
means that you're slowing me down or you're slowing this down. I do have an issue though with elders who are traveling in a car and don't stop yapping.
Don't stop yapping. You mean
Yeah,
to each
needing to use
other?
no, just
What?
always talking or needing to
Oh.
use the bathroom or something like this.
And you mean that
I've
you
experienced
meaning they're
that.
a passenger, meaning that you're the
Yeah.
one who's driving, or okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the one that's
Okay.
driving. Yeah.
Well,
That's what I mean.
those are things that happen though when you are traveling with someone who is of a mature age, because the bladder's not what it used to be.
No.
So
Yeah,
you do have to plan for more frequent stops. It just is.
It's just like, I mean, I was gonna say it's just like traveling with a child, but that's just a horrible thing to say.
Yes, it is. And what will be more beneficial is, how do we cope with, or how do we travel with our elders and make it obviously where you don't feel like it's a burden to you,
Mhm.
because I've
Okay.
had friends of mine who have very, like, just finished traveling with her father, who's 88 years old and
Mhm.
bound to a wheelchair kind of thing, or
Mm.
a walker, but they travel overseas all the time. But she comes back exhausted. And she
Mm.
comes back feeling like she didn't enjoy the trip. It was all
Mhm.
solely for him. That's okay too as well, but you also got to think about yourself and your stress level and all that other stuff.
And
Right.
I think the one of the first things that you have to consider when you're taking a trip is, okay, there's different levels as well. So it's mobility, right? So depending on if that person is truly independent, right? Are they independent enough as far as how they can get around?
Yeah.
Um, but even stepping further back, when doing that trip, you have to research of whether or not that country is available to that person, right? So are they going to be able to move around? Like, for instance, when initially when we were looking at a trip to going to Portugal, my mother was supposed to go on that trip.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I did not look. I didn't think, because I think of my mother as so independent because at the time she was still working. She had not retired as of yet, but she also had 2 knee surgeries. Although
Oh, wow.
she recovered wonderfully in that 2 knee replacement. She covered well. She was walking around well, no problem. We took that trip. She for circumstances, beyond her control, she ended up not being able to go. But after I went on the trip and came back,
Mm.
I was like, my mother would not have been able to walk
Because
up and
it's
Yeah.
down
all
those
hills.
streets.
It's all
Right,
hills.
It's
right.
And
nothing but hills. We would have been
yeah.
taking Uber. She would have had to take trolleys. I mean, it would have been extra steps. So I totally should have done more research on that particular trip. She would not have been able to get, to and fro in Lisbon without some assistance. So that's one of the things that, definitely we need to look at. So I think you need to do, some kind of legwork initially, for that. And then also you have to be in the frame of mind that this trip
But
is
what do
not
you
just
mean by
yours.
legwork? I'm sorry, Trisha, because obviously you're giving some good advice
Yeah,
to folks
but
that
I'm
are
just
in the
saying,
same. What do you mean by that?
right.
The
Well,
What kind of
research,
legwork,
advice?
right?
yeah, just the research, because you know me, I'm the research gal, but the
Mm.
research and the fact that, is this open to, this age group, right? Of this person. And you really have to know your, your
Limits.
elderly person, the limits of that person and what they can and cannot do. And, and really talk about the vacation, because you need to ask about, well, what are some of the things that you would want to do? Like I remember, having this discussion with my mother and telling her about this country. And of course she was, oh, I want to do all of that. I said, but mom, to get around, there isn't this. You're
No.
going to have to walk. You're going to have to,
Yeah.
trying to prepare her and saying, okay, well, if you're going to do this, guess what? You're going to have to get up every day. You're going to have to try to walk every day. And I
Like,
needed to have to remember the importance of that time together. The fact that I could
Yes.
have that time still with her, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
so many people
Mm-hmm.
that don't,
Yes.
and that I could pick one thing that I could do, and then things that we could do together. So that's how I try to
Mhm.
approach vacationing with her now, so that I don't get stressed out because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. You know
So
what I mean?
then,
Because
yeah, then the follow-up question, because I feel like I'm interviewing you now.
I know, I know, I
yeah.
know, and that's not how I wanted it to go. But I was
No,
just
no,
trying
no,
to let you
but
know what my
no, no, but you
process
have
was.
more of the experience now because
Yeah.
I lost my mom at a younger age, so she, I don't have that full experience like you would. Um, s- I guess the other question then I would ask is when you're taking trips like that, do you use it? Because I know when like I said, my mom passed when she was in her 70s, but when you take trips, what is it better to classify the trip that it's for your elderly parents, so that way in your mind you're not focused on it's going to be something for me to have fun and it's just going to be a very laxed
Hmm.
trip for you, and it's just what
I
what
just,
the parents want.
I don't like the way you're like, it's not going to be something for me to have fun. Like, I feel
No,
like
no, I didn't
that's,
say fun. I said, like, do you make it focus only solely
but
on
you literally
them?
just said, so it's not going to be something for me to have fun. It's going to be focused on them only.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to be able to go out to, if you like bars, because they're not going to be able to do that,
Well,
most
I know, but it's
likely.
not
And
like I also don't think you have to spend the entire vacation attached at the
Yeah.
hip. I mean,
Yeah.
I
well,
don't think it needs to be
if
like
they're
that.
wheelchair bound or if they're
Well,
walker
I
bound,
know, but like they might want to rest and then they're
that's
Yeah.
what I
resting, and
mean.
that's when you
Yeah,
would
Yeah.
go out.
If they're
Yeah.
but
resting,
that's
then
what I
you can
mean.
go
I'm
out.
sorry, but
Yeah.
that's what I mean. But yes, that's exactly what I meant. Is that the avenue or that the approach to do things is when they're
Yeah.
done, then I feel like you have to sneak out of the house.
You're an adult, so no, you're an adult.
Yeah.
You can leave them by themselves. It's not like an issue.
No, I mean, like, you get where I'm coming from, but like what other planning, I'd be curious. And I know
Each year I try to do something a little different. But on my way there, I really didn't think about it. Although I knew that we would be living in the jungle in a cabin, I
Right.
really didn't think about it. I think when we arrived, we flew into Liberia and we had to drive 2 hours to get to the jungle. Now, that was kind of, I kind of thought about it, Trecia. I really did. I'm thinking, what have I got myself into? Because 2 hours, and I should have known. And it was kind of primitive. The roads were dirt roads, bumpy. We were in this old raggedy van. It was very adventurous. I enjoyed it, but that ride from the airport to the jungle, 2 hours, I did not expect for it to be that long, far away from the airport. But
Sure.
I should have known it's in the jungle, so it's not going to be in the urban part of the. I would do it again, and I would do zip lining. Because now I look back, I'm thinking maybe I should have done zip lining. But I was very happy with the horseback riding.
You've had some fabulous vacations, not just by road locally or domestically, but you've also traveled internationally.
Right.
How do you all come about making those decisions to do that? What is it, just, dreams of yours that you wanted to come, or there's an organized, decision on that?
When David and I got married, we made basically a vow to each other that we would not wait until we retired to travel. Mm-hmm. We would travel. We wanted to travel, even if it was just across the state line. And we kept that promise.
Do you all feel any like there's any barriers, or there's any difference than when you were younger?
That's a good question too. I don't think I have a lot of fear.
That generation, the boomers, have the money, and in fact, I would. Those are the people that are traveling. I mean, to be honest, because they're free.
There's just, there's so many articles and so many programs and concierge and, luxury and accommodations that are geared towards elderly travel now, that it's and really it's just because it's the boomer generation, but now us is, Generation X, where we are in our lives, and the fact that the equity that we have in our homes now, because home prices have just soared, historically right now, just from where we were, 10 years ago. We have so much equity right now in our homes that we can tap into for just about anything, not just college education, but for travel. And we can, in terms, we can actually tap into our retirement, if you will, to take some of these trips.
The limitation that I would think of in my book would be what kind of limitations on traveling as an elder. Like, for example, I could tell you Paris has lots of limitation for an older person. And I commend an older person, because you have to really do your research, for example, because there's a lot of places if you're going to, well, number one, you may or may not be able to take the metro. So you're going to have to drive everywhere and park. So that's
going money. Up and down all those stairs, right? Because they don't have
absolutely elevator in everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of elevators. Right.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Have you seen our mature or elderly lately? Because they look better than you and I.
Yeah, they look. Yeah,
they are fine. They are
Botox.
Fit. They are. It doesn't matter, but they are more fit and more put together. Well, and a lot of our seniors.
And Miss Ethel really honed in on that point about staying active. That is something that she has been doing for decades and continues to do, which has enables her to travel to places like Costa Rica and horseback ride and river raft and do all those things in the middle of the damn jungle, which, a lot of people, if you don't have the mobility, it's not going to happen. But I think that, like, the act of traveling and doing those things that you're unfamiliar with, or maybe even just a little bit frustrating, like, I feel like that actually keeps us young, at least like mentally, because you have to like work through it, and it's not easy, but like that's what keeps our brains like that neuroplasticity, to get all scientific,
Yes.
yeah, like I mean, because going to like a new place, there's that initial kind of like an anticipation, but some anxiety and some excitement, and
Yeah.
then some new experience happens that's weird and bizarre, and we have to navigate it. Yeah, it's definitely.
I hope for myself that that's exactly what happens, because I just have such a passion right now, and I just could not conceivably see myself not being able to do that.
Well, yes, thank you all for watching. Si vous aimez notre podcast, s'il vous plaît, commentez, partagez avec vos amis. Abonnez-vous, s'il vous plaît. Aimez notre page et suivez-nous sur Instagram et Facebook. And yes, all the things.
Now
All the
translate that.
things.
Translate that for the non-French
I
people
said,
now, please.
if you like our podcast, please comment, share with your friends, subscribe, like our page, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and do all the things.
Yes,
You're
and
a
definitely,
lady of
definitely.
many talents.
Many talents, my dear. Many
So-
talents. Aren't we fortunate?
That's right. That's right. Y'all come on over to France, and we'll use that language stuff too as well.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.